The Stone Carvers Guild Podcast is a part of the Stone Carvers Guild organization, which is a fantastic organization. Don't y'all agree?
Oh, yeah, it's great. And it's cheap, too.
It's well worth the price of admission.
It is, for sure. You can find out how to become a general member at stonecarversguild.org. There's a Get Involved section. And I've been a member of the Stone Carvers Guild since its inception. It's been an unbelievable resource as far as the knowledge. How did you describe it, Joel?
Oh, it's a living library of knowledge that the stone carving world otherwise is sort of hard to break into if you are looking around for it. I'm a general member. I'm not a full-time stone carver, but I love it from kind of a hobbyist, part-time perspective, but looking to learn more, and found that through the Stone Carvers Guild, through its forum, and through being able to connect easily with other like-minded folks like Bethany and Matthew.
Yeah. So if you want to be a general member, it's just $40, and you would have access to the resources, which include the forum, and then you can log on and you could ask Matthew questions on the forum.
Or anyone else.
Or anyone else.
And also there's the annual meeting, which I just love because once a year, getting together and sharing stories is an unbelievable experience. And that's something that's also available to general members.
Attend a general meeting or even become a professional member, which has other benefits as well. You just have to go to stonecarversguild.org and click on Get Involved at the top.
Join today.
Welcome to the Stone Carvers Guild Podcast. Here you will meet a variety of carvers working throughout North America. Drawing on our collective experience, we seek to share knowledge about this ancient art and to do our part to ensure that stone carving will play an important role in built environments for generations to come. So whether you are an experienced carver, new to the craft, or just curious, put on your safety goggles, open up your mind, and welcome to the workshop.
Welcome to the Stone Carvers Guild Podcast. I'm Matt Johnson.
I'm Bethany Lee.
I'm Joel Penorwood. Hey.
Hey, is this how we're going to introduce ourselves from now on?
We'll figure it out.
Are we still working on a standard way to start this program? How many years have we been doing this now? Are we on our
It's the
third
journey
year,
that will never end.
We're on our second year still.
We're getting close to third.
Yeah.
Because right about now was when we had that virtual meeting.
No way.
And then Bethany said, we should start a podcast.
Wow.
And then Amy Breyer said, does anybody here know how to produce a podcast? And I raised my hand.
And then Joel accidentally raised his hand, and now Joel does. Joel does all the maintenance work. He's like the super of the Stone Carvers Guild. It's like, the website's broken. Call Joel.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right. That's all right. If it's gotten me into conversations with you fine folks, it's worth it.
So I need to answer
we
Matthew's
appreciate
question.
everything that.
Whoever talks first. Well, whoever talks first gets to start the podcast however they want.
Yeah,
so
that's right. I'm so glad
Matthew
that I got invited.
year.
I wasn't even at that meeting, and for some reason, I think I just invited myself into the mix. I don't know why.
No. You were corralled into it because you
I was?
have the voice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really enjoying
it. To be.
Amy said, you guys are great. Now we need
That's right.
The voice.
Mm-hmm.
We need this stone carver we called the voice.
Yeah.
The voice. But we couldn't get him, so we got Matthew Johnson.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So
all
Jim
right.
Larson.
Our guest today
What a
is
cool
Jim
guy.
Larson.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
cool.
Yeah.
I got to meet Jim last year at the main Stone Workers Guild Symposium. He's just he's he does this and he does that, and he's just a really good guy. We mentioned it in the conversation, but I want to give everybody the website address for his, because you can find out there all the stuff that he's involved in, and it's called stonestructures.net. Other than that,
yeah, this is a pretty fun conversation. I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but there was one piece I really liked where he's talked about he really likes working in big pieces. And we said, what's your definition of big? He's like, well, that you can't lift it. I was like, I really like that definition. That's a good definition of big. So there you go.
Yeah. I don't think you ruined it for me.
Well, good. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's jump in.
I told Jim, I said, this is actually a philosophical podcast where
that's right.
we sometimes talk about stone carving.
So, Matthew, you brought us a cool person.
Yeah.
This was one of your people from the thing in Maine?
Yeah, Jim was cool.
How did you guys meet?
Matthew and I first met when I was working with the Maine Stone Carvers Guild up in Rockland, Maine, with the sculpture symposium that Sam Finkelstein organized on behalf of the guild. And Matthew used it as an excuse to go on vacation in Maine and see this crazy quarry island, Hurricane Island, and meet some of the stoneworkers up here. And he hung out for a couple days and saw everything we were working on and saw the whole circus that is carving stone, carving granite, really, in the symposium setting.
Granite is such a different medium from, I have no experience with it at all, so it was super cool to just see all the different tools that are involved. The scale of those tools is pretty impressive, how y'all move that. You still have to get rid of the same amount of stone, but you got to do it, and it just seems bigger.
I think some of the reason that it seems bigger is, especially in Maine and New Hampshire where I grew up, granite is so common. Old granite quarries, just piles and piles and piles of thrown away stone, that it's essentially free if you can move it. And it's so much more fun and engaging to work a piece of stone that can take the really extreme force of swinging a really large hammer and working the material by hand. And so in my experience, in New England anyway, granite workers are rarely working a small piece of granite.
What's considered small for you, Jim?
Well, the rule that I have for the work that I do, the architectural work I do, is I don't work with stone that I can pick up. So with my body. And that helps keep the work a little bit more profitable, and it's a kind of a funny way to start, and it brings up this really important focus on scale. And for me, my interest in stone is that it is how we build around us, or at least one way. And it's also how the ground beneath us is built. It feels like the original structural material. And with that in mind, I prefer to work a piece of stone that is much larger than me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the granite industry in Maine and in the Northeast?
Sure, yeah. So the granite industry in the Northeast kind of took off once the material science was there to work with such hard stone. That was kind of mid to late 1800s. It really became a popular stone to work. I grew up right near Concord, New Hampshire, and Rattlesnake Hill, which is the hill that Swenson Granite had its blue granite quarry on. They've been cutting stone on that hill for well over 200 years. And first they started with the surface rock, just big boulders up there, and then started cutting into the cliffs and into the ground directly. And I believe that granite quarry now is the deepest operating granite quarry in the world, and it takes them about 45 minutes to crane a block out of the bottom. And because of that time, the company that owns it now, Polycore, they kind of shut it down a little bit, pretty sad, and they've been trying to physically reformat the quarry so it can be serviced by fork loaders. But that's kind of the story of every granite quarry in New England, it seems. They're trying to keep up with the fast pace of building today, building with really instant materials like concrete and steel. So with the advent of those two, or popularization of those two materials, I would say 1910, 1920, the industry really started to decline. But I'm sure if you listen back to the podcast with Norman and Sam with the Maine Stone Carvers Guild, they talked a little bit about the islands off the coast of Maine that supplied so much of the building stone for New York City and a lot of the coastal cities on the East Coast.
And that's like an island like Hurricane Island. I didn't realize that there were more.
So many more.
One of the things that was interesting when I was on the tour of Hurricane Island, I was like, what is the economics of, like, you got all this stone on an island, and now you got to, how is this easier than like quarrying on the mainland? And what was really interesting is the guides explained it to me that actually the island was on the main thoroughfare of transport at the time. That it was boats. Everything was boats anyway. So having it on an island was actually basically like having it in the middle of an interstate highway.
Yeah. Over in Ohio, we have something like similar, except it was all limestone quarries. But up in Lake Erie, I know we have islands in Ohio, very odd. But up in Lake Erie, there's this island called Kelly's Island, and pretty much the entire center of it is sort of this old shut down quarry. But yeah, it ran along the thoroughfare of shipping lanes, and it was a hub for really more gravel limestone. But yeah, interesting.
I'm curious, Jim, if you can tell us something about the shift in technology. You said that the granite quarries were not exploited really until the technology was there. So what happened that people were able to use it?
Yeah, first it started with tool steel. The ease of making tool steel that would hold up against really, really tough stone. And even still, it wasn't until carbide tip tools, that granite carving or granite quarrying was done without a blacksmith working almost for every quarrier. So there'd be a whole blacksmith shed that were forging all of the chisels back into their points, not grinding, but forging them back into sharp.
Wow.
And then tempering them and giving a whole bucket of hand drills or a whole bucket of point chisels back to all of the cutters. And they would run through tens, hundreds of them in a day, depending on where they were working or how fast. And
okay.
Now, I think in Texas, they use one chisel for life.
That's what we do.
Okay.
Now I've gotten some new chisels. Last year when I was in Indiana, I was right next to Bybee, and so I asked them to make me a couple of new chisels. But other than that, I've had the same chisels for 30 years, I think, 35 years. But yeah, looking at the tools that I saw Jim using, like, it's crazy. Like the scale of them and just the power required to move them.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting that in the Northeast, where freeze thaw is like really brutal on absorbent stones, granite is sometimes really the best option.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if there's any ground contact, the string course or like the sill stones should be granite to prevent the rising damp in, let's say, a normally limestone building.
How did you get involved in the industry? What drew you to it, and what was your point of entry?
Oh man, it's a really profound question, because I have some stoneworkers like back in my family lineage that I didn't know about until a few years ago. Some that worked in Monson, Maine, in the slate quarries there, and some of my family are vinyls of Vinyl Haven that worked on that quarry island. And it's been these kind of like spiritual multiverse, like weird deja vu experiences of like, how could I possibly like know this in my bones so thoroughly? And that's something that I've been feeling more as I return to these historical quarry sites or return to these historical ways of working. But how did I fall into it? Well, New Hampshire is the granite state, and there are all these old stoneworkers there that didn't have anyone young to pass their skills along to, and they were just excited to have an enthusiastic, able-bodied young person that could, swing the hammer with them. And
so it was your youth that was appealing.
Yeah, I mean, I was very young when I started, and I at first I really wasn't confident in stone. I thought it was so played out. I thought it was so antiquated, especially for art making, which is what I was focusing on when I was younger. And I would say it was 5 years ago that it really hit me that there is no more elegant material, no more relevant and elegant material to be working with today than stone. It's just a piece of the ground. And
Could you explore that a little bit? Like what in your
Sure.
what in your experience makes it the most elegant and
Yeah, I think the timelessness of it is like a kind of foundational part of that. But for me, it's this process of excavation. It's also like excavating the excavated when you're working with quarried stone. Like it's this process of producing voids, not just producing positive forms. Like there's a void in the ground where the stone came from. And then as you remove stone to produce the shadows that tell your story, you're also producing negative space. And in that way that we like remove the stone in its permanence, I think the like capturing of that light, the capturing of those shadows is like so analogous to a human experience. And that like back and forth of like the way the stone, your way of working, the like years of like physical labor in a career imprints upon your body, you also imprint upon the material.
Was it a particular project that made you realize that?
A particular project. I think I had this mentor named Chance, and he's from Canterbury, New Hampshire, a very eccentric, brilliant old man who lives up on this mountaintop alone in New Hampshire. And he's just been building and building and building and building for the like 60 years that he's lived up there alone. We're talking like 12,000 square feet of like hand-carved Scandinavian timber frame and stone structure. And yeah. And for him, it's just play. It's like he often remarks to me that like, sure, he's been alone for most of his life, but the joke is on everybody else because he just got to walk out his door and build whatever he wanted every day. And I started working with Chance when I was pretty young, and that like really, really hit me so hard that one of the most fun things that we can do is literally just work, is to make things, especially spaces for like ourselves and for the people that we love. And for me, it's stone specifically because, like I said, it's essentially free if you can move it. It's like the most humble material out there. It's just a piece of the ground. Stack it up, and all of a sudden you have a space that's worth being.
Wow, what a way to live your life, just building. How did you meet Chance? I wanted to say, how did you chance upon Chance? But
yeah, Chance and I met, I guess, through my art teacher in middle school. I was working with, this is Andy Moorline was my art teacher in middle school, and I was working with him, helping him make some of his sculpture, not a stone carver. And he said, Jim, you need to meet Chance, and you have to go see Chanceland. And I was like, what is that? And then, finally made it out there, and I was like, what? What is this place? Yeah, when you don't have to follow building code and you can just build in a way that you as a worker, as a builder, it to be strong. It all of a sudden is how people built for 10,000 years.
So then did you begin working on these projects with him?
Yeah. We had some crazy projects. Some down in Boston, just like everything from restoration work to new builds. And then around that time, I started working with this older sculptor named John Weidman, who is the founder of the Andres Institute of Art in Brookline, New Hampshire. And he is an immensely skilled welder fabricator and stone carver, which is a pretty rare combo. And working with him at the Andres Institute, I was able to see that large format sculpture is maybe the only way that we as like individual artists can start to unpack the like really weird structures of our environment that have been built by construction companies and architects and make them a little bit more human and livable. And today, that's why I like do the work that I do, the public art that I do, and organize the public art programs that I do, is so that artists can interface with our built environment and kind of process it and make it more useful, approachable, and livable for the people who are forced to work with it every day.
Can you tell us about the event that's coming up this spring that you're
On
working
May
with? On
14th, we have 4 international stone carvers, actually 3 international stone carvers, and Sean Hunter Williams, who was on a previous podcast, guild member, coming to Nashua, New Hampshire to participate in the 17th International Sculpture Symposium that produces large format public sculpture for the city of Nashua, New Hampshire.
And you organize this event, is that correct? Or you're involved in the organization of it?
Yeah, I'm the director of the program, and I do like most of the facilitation around producing the work, inviting the artists, and facilitating installation sites with the city.
And is there a mission, like with each year? Is it just everybody makes what they want, or what happens with what they create?
Each year we have a theme, and this year our theme is gathering momentum. And all of the work at the end of the symposium, generally the last 2 or 3 days, is installed permanently and publicly on public land in Nashua. So now we have almost 60 pieces of sculpture throughout the city.
Wow! So this is 17th year. So wow! So y'all are building an international sculpture garden.
In some ways, yes. Also, the work is really well integrated with the city. So I think it's the locals that experience it most closely because they know it's there and it's like part of the everyday experience, the everyday life of a Nashville resident.
Wow.
What are some like examples of past projects?
Past projects from the Sculpture Symposium.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in 2024, we had this artist, Kevin Percival, who's French but works in the UK with the stonemasonry company. And he came and carved this giant puzzle piece, 12 foot wide, 8 foot tall puzzle piece from white marble, maybe 18 inches thick, imagined as if it were pulled from the rose window of this French abbey in the town where he grew up. And this abbey is in kind of a state of underuse and disrepair. And for Kevin, like pulling this puzzle piece was him thinking about these composite structures, these like stacked stone structures where there are all of these like geometric puzzle pieces cut by the stonemason, and how that is analogous to how we build so much of our community. And also then remember and care for the things that folks have built for the community in the past.
Wait, so you said it's a puzzle piece,
So
and it looked like what?
If you drew the like outlines of all of the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle on really large on the facade of an abbey or a cathedral, let's say, and each puzzle piece, is like 7 or 10 feet wide, and then Kevin picked one of these pieces from the facade and then carved that from this giant block of white marble.
Oh, okay.
Oh, neat.
Got it. Okay.
And
then you were saying that kind of represented.
Yeah, one piece of this really, really composite universe that's made up of all the different products of things that people have built for thousands and thousands of years.
You were about to give the website address.
Yeah, it's the NashuaSculptureSymposium.org. And we have all of the work cataloged. You can see what people made all the way back in 2008. Actually, the art teacher that I brought up, Andy Moorline, when I was in middle school in 2011, he was one of the participants at this symposium. And I remember him skipping out on class for a month to go to this symposium.
So they'll be working on these pieces for a month in Nashua.
Yes, May 14th to June 6th.
Wow.
And the closing ceremony is on the 6th. We'll do a tour around the city to see all of the installed work.
And then are there also other things that like people that come to see it? Are there classes, little instructional opportunities or things like that? Or is it pretty much you go and you watch them?
We have quite a bit of programming during the first week of the symposium, mostly centered around schools and other nonprofits in Nashua. We parade artists around to these schools, introduce them to the students, and then many of those students end up coming to the work site to work at least a little bit with us on the work. We also have 2, actually maybe 3 interns coming. We're still nailing it down from some local art schools, college students that will be working with us. And for me, so much of the symposium is putting stoneworking and also large format art making. And it's like incredibly entertaining and performative circus. It's like actual labor back in the public realm for people to see and understand that it's not just worth doing, it's fun to do. And it's something that we do on behalf of our community.
Right. It's funny. It is really interesting, but there is a necessary slowness to it, and so like the symposiums that I've done. It's like a lot of people kind of glaze over; they don't see it. But then every once in a while, you'll have somebody come by and they'll see the motion, even though it's slow. The pace is slow, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like it is kind of a circus, but it's not. There's not a lot of like people flying out of cannon across elephants, and
It's true, you're right, but I do think our version of stone carving is perhaps a little bit faster and full of maybe like bigger gestural strokes, stones falling apart, big splits, more so than the more precise architectural carving of stone. Like you're doing big. Yeah, in the first few days of the symposium, we'll often be splitting up some 30,000 pound quarry block that's too heavy for our crane to lift off the truck. So we'll split the block on the truck so we can lift it. A couple artists will use those pieces of stone. And then we start with some like really, really big saws that we've kind of pulled from the construction industry, typically used for cutting concrete, and use those to really access the depth of the stone to make our way into the volume. And the cool part about that is instead of just turning everything to little chips as if we were just whittling it away with the air hammer by hand, we end up with these 1,000-pound offcuts that are then carvable for something smaller or a student can use to practice on.
Mm-hmm.
Those little pieces, yeah.
Right.
The little pieces.
I saw on I forget if it was your email or on your website, and it was saying that for the
the main Stoneworkers Guild Sculpture Symposium.
There we go.
For that, it said something about making custom carving machinery using construction technology. So I'm very curious, what are the things that you make to do the large scale? That description, and so paint us a picture, like what are the things that you're building to carve?
I have a lot of training as a machinist and metal fabricator as well. And I thought that's for a while what I would spend my life doing. And so in many ways, I approach especially large format granite carving because it's so hard to work quickly in granite with tools other than big machine tools. I approach that work as a machinist might. So some of these tools are a radial drill press, which is like a 8-foot long cast iron arm with the giant gearhead drill press head sliding along it so that you can work on a really, really large workpiece. The work envelope for it is 8 foot by 8 foot by 16 foot. And with a quick adapter running a diamond core drill in this 10 horsepower drill press becomes very, very efficient and effective. Similarly, the diamond core drill, which I'm sure many of us use on stone, but approaching that not just as a drill, but also as a milling device, and equipped with a power feed, it becomes this really efficient way of making precise cuts in stone. Also, things like track saws, which are often thought of as a countertop tool, can make really, really efficient progress of precise depth cuts. The French stone cutters that I work with call them depth cutters. Just like a step up from a circular saw, which I know is quite common to use in stone, but if you pair it with a power feed and a track, all of a sudden it's this automated milling device.
What is a power feed?
A power feed? For metalworking, it's very common, but it's generally a really slow motor that will turn a lead screw, or it's a slow motor that will turn a gear that meshes into a rack. So it will feed your cutting device, your saw head or your mill head, along as it cuts for you so that you're not controlling it by hand.
Huh. Wow.
Jim, I'm on your website, stonestructures.net, which, by the way, this is quite a website. It is.
There is some like confusion in my mind, maybe self-consciousness about understanding if it's like a contractor's website or a artist's website. And I hope it feels confusing for anybody who sees it, because I also don't know. I don't know.
It's
which
delightfully confusing. It's I love it. Anyways, but go there, everybody, right now, stonestructures.net. But there's some really neat things there, including, I think, some of the equipment that you were highlighting down below.
I've been.
It's kind of the opposite of Bethany's mallet and chisel.
Apparently. But
now, hold on. I do want to, Jim, as you and I were talking during the sound check, there's a little bit of your philosophy about efficiency of being able to work with tools that you can carry or can pack pretty efficiently. Talk about that. I'm butchering it here.
Yeah, I think stoneworking, stone carving is such a beautiful profession because you can fit all of your tools that you need to build, let's say, a cathedral, minus the lifting equipment, all of the tools you need in a toolbox. Like, you show up with your one toolbox and you can cut the stone. And it feels like there's so few other professions that are just so focused. And I think that my version of stoneworking is still very similar to that, except it's two toolboxes. One that's full of the hammer and the chisel and the air hammers, and then another that's full of these like larger saws that have the horsepower to really like access the depth of the stone quickly.
So
a lot of these saws are very common. Like, many of us use a 14-inch gas-powered saw. Like, so many landscape contractors use them for cutting their pavers. And they're great. And they're, I think, much, much safer than an angle grinder. The guard is so much better, and I know a lot of us actually might not even use the guard on the grinder. Oh, scary. And if you like dig a little bit deeper into the different versions of those gas-powered saws that are out there, there start to be some that can cut like 10, 14, 20 inches deep, and you can still hold them in your hand. And for so many of us, a block that's 40 inches wide and you can cut it in half with two cuts with a handheld saw, that feels absurd. Like, that scale all of a sudden is huge.
If you wanted to, say you were, curious about granite, and you didn't want to, invest thousands and thousands of dollars into these tools, would there be like, what would be a recommended starter kit for somebody that wanted to be able to move the material, but didn't want to bet the whole farm on it? I'm trying to assume that somebody is listening and has absolutely nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I would start with a 4.5-inch angle grinder with a flush mount granite cutting blade. Flush mount means that you don't need the arbor nut to hold the blade on the grinder. It has a threaded flange that just screws right onto the arbor, and that allows you to cut a large flat plane with a small tool. That would be the start, and angle grinder could be as cheap as $50. Blade might be $15. And a 2-inch hand set, which is a square-ended chisel, and it acts like a shear for stone, and some people call it a pitcher. And I assume that you'd have a hammer. A 2-pound to 3-pound hammer is pretty nice. Sometimes 4-pound is nice with the handset on granite. And a point chisel, and let's say like a 1-inch or a 3/4-inch flat chisel. And these are carbide tipped chisels. And you could get those
material. You could really start moving some material with those tools. You can move it.
Definitely. A 9-inch grinder or 7-inch grinder will cut way faster, but the place to start is with the 4.5-inch grinder to learn the tool. But
you wouldn't need a drill or anything in order to be able to split the rock, or you can split it just with the I call it a pitching tool, but you called it something else. The 2-inch.
If you were trying to split a block in half with a chisel, with like a hand tool, without drilling it in some way, the tracer would be the tool to use, which is like generally a wide chisel that has a blunter sharpening on it. Not a square-ended chisel like a handset, but a tracer is used for like tracing a line around a piece of stone, sometimes a piece of granite, before you drill and split it with the feathers and wedges.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a drill, but drills are expensive. A drill and $15 of half-inch feathers and wedges. Yeah, that'd get you really far really fast. But one of the tools that I use the most often are a set of wide, like 2-3 inch wide flat wedges that I cut out of the ends of truck leaf springs. So they're really tough spring steel and they hold up really well against the stone. And I just hammer them into saw cuts. And especially with a larger tool, 9-inch grinder or a 14-inch gas saw, instead of having to drill a piece of stone, you can run a saw cut in, pound a row of these flat wedges in, and split it, I think, a little bit faster.
So it's basically the same idea as feathers and wedges, except for you're going along a cut line instead of drill holes.
But don't get me wrong, I have quite many compressed air power drills, and I think they are some of my most used tools.
I've seen your toolboxes, and when you were describing like being able to approach a project with just a toolbox, but you need two. It should be said that those toolboxes are quite large.
I did see one picture. I think it's your truck loaded down with several slabs of stone, and your toolbox is strapped to the top of that. I really enjoyed that picture there. And yeah, pretty good toolbox.
Jim, can you walk us through, like, if you chose a project? I'm just looking like at the mouth on the Sculpture Symposium website that you did, or any of the ones on Instagram. Like, with a granite project, can you walk us through from start to finish and say, like, what are the tools that you use for the different stages?
Okay. Yeah. So actually, there's two that I would love to share here. One is the mouth that you just brought up, which is called You Are a Snack. And it's this 7-foot tall mouth, open mouth, carved so that when it's installed in a hillside, someone can slide down the hill and into the back of the sculpture and then through the piece and out the open mouth. And for me, it was about exploring the like architecture of our body, the way our body holds space, negative space, and how like our tongue is so sensitive, and children especially are like playing with their teeth to like understand the like physicality of their body. And to be an adult and be like held within, literally inside of a block of stone, I think that's a really special experience. But to create this piece, I specifically sourced a wedge cut, like a giant wedge of, this was gray marble from Vermont. And it was probably a 14,000 pound piece of stone to start. And I squared up the 90-degree corner of this wedge. And to square it up, I used a gas saw, 14-inch gas-powered 2-stroke saw that was adapted to take a flush mount blade. So it's a custom-made adapter that bolts onto the arbor of the saw and lets you cut a flat plane with the 14-inch blade. Most gas-powered saws, I know Husqvarna's not as many of the steels. You can unbolt the arbor section of the saw where the belt runs, kind of like a chainsaw bar. You can unbolt it and flip it over to move the blade to the outside of the saw so that you can keep cutting a large flat surface without the saw body itself being in the way of your cut. So I adapted that saw to make cuts like that, squared up the block, had my model, drew everything out, and then I essentially began a quarrying operation to remove this, what was probably 28-inch diameter round hole, almost round hole, through the open mouth, through the center of the block at an angle. And if I had a 28-inch core drill and a lot of time, that would have been a faster way to do it. But at that point, I didn't. And so I used this, it's called a ring saw. This one was made by Husqvarna, but it's a 14-inch blade that cuts 10 inches deep. And if you do a series of plunge cuts, you can come in all parallel to each other in a row. You can come in from the end of the plunge cut with the pitcher and pitch out the entire depth of that whole cut, just like scoop it out like a melon ball. And that is like 10-inch deep steps at a time. And so I had to go about 36 inches through the block, and I went from two sides and met in the middle, channel style. And from there, I began carving the rest mostly with the air hammer because it was marble and I could work really quickly. All of the teeth and the tongue and the lips and mouth. But to do that roughing, I was using, it's actually an original dallet made in Philadelphia, but instead of the like couture style, bottle style hammer that's always on when air is supplied to it, this is kind of a gooseneck shaped, also 1/2 inch shank though, so it takes the same chisels, compressed air powered hammer. And I would say it's a little bit bigger than, let's say, like an 1.25 inch dallet or couture.
And you said a dallet? Or sorry, I missed whatever.
Yeah, Dallett. And that was one of the original manufacturers of the like bottle style couture type air hammer in the United States.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, Thomas H. Dallett in Philadelphia, I think started in like maybe 1880 or something like that. And made compressed air power tools up until the 40s when he went out of business.
Okay, so we're talking air hammer now.
Yes, and so a lot of that was done with a 2-tooth chisel.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
But like I think there's a video on my website of like trimming up the shape of the lips of the mouth, like where I like cut in behind them with the grinder to relieve the material, and then I came in with the pitcher and just pitched off these 15-pound pieces of marble to just push them out of the way. But like tracing a line with the pitcher and like making a nice graceful curve by hand feels so much more like drawing to me than like trying to work that material with a grinder or even an air hammer. The pitcher is truly, I think, my favorite tool. The handset is what I'm talking about, especially in granite. Allows you to put so much shear force, like so much separating force, so deep into a piece of stone. So for a lot of the like mid-level roughing of the mouthpiece, I used the 2-tooth chisel, famously made popular by Michelangelo. And the 2-tooth is nice because it's kind of like a point chisel where like the surface is not distracting you, like a nice smooth surface is not distracting, and you can focus more on the form. And then after that, I used a variety of finishing tools, everything from sanding it with the diamond pad to some of the like carbide cup wheel or cup chisels that just pulverize the surface lightly. So that piece actually has some reinforcement running down through the sides of the mouth that pull that into compression just so there's no risk of it fracturing with somebody underneath it. It was an old piece of marble, and it's not that I don't trust it, it's just that I don't want to have to worry.
Yeah, right. So when you're using like a 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch pneumatic hammer, is the size of the shaft the same? Is it still a 1/2 inch shaft, or is it larger? Is it 5/8?
That's the trick. If you went and bought one from, let's say, Trow and Holden today, Granite City Tool, they would sell you 1.25 inch would have a 5/8 shank. And for me, that is cost prohibitive. And I think the reason they do it is because there'd be more impact on that like little 1/2 inch end of it, of the shank there. But in my experience, I've never had one mushroom over inside of the hammer. I've never had the shank get destroyed on one of my 1/2 inch chisels.
So you use a 1/2 inch shank?
Yeah, so that's the trick, is finding one that takes, usually they're marked as a 0.498. That's the like industry size for like, I think mechanics have like auto mechanics have air hammers that take that size shank as well. But sometimes, especially with the American-made chisels, the shank itself is just a little bit too long, and it will travel too far up inside of the hammer and make the hammer kind of stall out and run poorly. And that the automotive style of air hammer is designed to bear on the shoulder of the shank, not around the edge of the end of the shank. I'm using a lot of words. Stop me if it's not making sense.
No. So are you using automotive air hammers?
I think they are automotive air hammers made in like the 1950s.
Okay, but so they're more like they've got a trigger switch on them.
Exactly, and that's they're not pistol shaped. They're more of the like construction
gun.
demolition style that is
Yeah.
like a gooseneck handle.
Okay. Oh, you mean they're not pistol shaped?
Okay.
Yes,
that was,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, the trick is like you can find them at like used tool stores, at like antique tool stores, yard sales, probably eBay. And yeah, searching for the .498 shank chisel, that's the inch measurement of the diameter of the shank. That usually finds them pretty quick.
Okay.
So that the mouth was one project I wanted to talk about, and then the other one is this Vietnam War memorial that I'm just finishing up for the town of Milford, New Hampshire. And this was a really, really long-term project that was actually put in motion, I think, before I was born. And this mentor of mine, John Weidman of the Andres Institute of Art, he designed the memorial as this 27-foot wide, 7 or 8 foot tall, giant open book with names of veterans on the book, and then these like kind of commando war scenes from Vietnam sandblasted into them. And so I worked with John really closely on this, and the quarry actually in Milford, New Hampshire, cut us the block of stone specifically for the project, all in one piece, 27 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 5 feet thick. And
Wow.
This is a beautiful gray granite quarry. It's similar to Berry Gray, and I know this is going to be recorded, but I think it's nicer to carve than Berry Gray. Oh gosh. It's called
Well, you can never go back
Kittledge.
there.
You can never go back. It's on the record. Milford Kittledge is the name of the stone, and the quarry is owned by Granites of America. And it's also in the same quarry as Tapestry. That's the brand name, Milford Tapestry, which some people might know. That's what West Point is made out of. So they cut us this block of stone. It was 100,000 pounds. They couldn't move it in the quarry because it was so big. They lifted it out of the bed where they cut it from with the water bags that they used to like push their walls of stone away with the wire saw.
Yeah.
And got dunnage underneath it. And then we came in and split the stone at a 17-degree angle in the quarry into two pieces, two 50,000-pound pieces. And that 17-degree angle is integral to the finished piece because as John designed the memorial, the book is split at this angle through its spine, and the two pieces are separated apart so that you can walk through them 17 degrees because of the 17th parallel in Vietnam. And this was a design detail that also became a fabrication detail, and it really allowed us to actually make this piece. We then stood the pieces up on edge in the quarry and split them flatwise to remove some of the materials so they could be more easily trucked over the road without an overweight permit. And then we had them trucked up to Maine, and I worked with some quarry operator friends in Wells, Maine at Millennium Granite. Amazing, amazing guys. And we used their really, really big Italian wire saw to cut this kind of OG shape that is that like curve, like lamestone curve of the open book page. And use the wire saw to essentially cut the geometry of the piece, rough it out. And then from there went and cut these kind of abstracted pages into the edges of the book. And then drilled pinholes in the bottom so that it could be pinned to its base, and drove it down to Milford, and then installed these two pieces. Finished, each piece was about 14,000 pounds.
Hmm.
And these can be viewed today?
Yes, they are installed just off of the downtown area in Milford, New Hampshire.
Very cool.
But this piece is really special because when they had me talk at the dedication of this piece, and I suggested in this talk that this is like truly a model for how we remember the ways that people have worked for our community. And specifically, I was talking about veterans, but also thinking about stoneworkers that would work with their local stone. Like the quarry in the town cut the piece of stone to remember the people of the town that fought to keep the town around. And it's so common to see a memorial made out of like absolute black or something like crazy and exotic from overseas. And it feels really, really funny to be working with such a humble material that's pulled maybe from the ground a quarter mile away from you. And for some reason, instead, someone out there specifies this really absurd and exotic piece of stone that nobody has working knowledge of in the area.
Yeah, that's that's an ongoing. I think it's an evolving issue where I think it's like any technology or any innovation. At first, there's just a wondrous fascination, like, oh, gotta have it, sort of attitude. Usually, that kind of like resides, and it seems like that with the with transportation costs around the world, like getting to become like almost a negligible number, it seems like that there was this fascination with materials that were, didn't make any sense actually with the rest of the environment around them. It seems like architects and designers and just artists in general are starting to become a little bit more aware of that.
I think back to the Michael Ember conversation, Matt, and him talking about how great of an advantage it is to use the things local and they're kind of part of the landscape in the design and architect work.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one more question for Jim. I'd love for you, Jim, to talk about, you have a wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us in many areas, and I'm going to dox you a little bit, I guess. You're 31 years old.
31, yeah.
And so I think that makes you the youngest in the group here. Just a little, I'm 32, so just a little bit. But what has been the role of mentors? You talked about, you found the Stone Carvers Guild through this podcast, which thank you, by the way. But we talked a little bit earlier on about some tools for those that are maybe wanting to get into it. But so much of it is just finding resources of knowledge and folks to help along the way. How has that played out for you, Jim? And do you have any advice along those routes?
Yes, I have actually two. Well, I'll answer your question and then one exciting look to the future.
Okay.
Mentors, showing up. Everybody says it, just show up. And it's really trite and it's really a simplification because sometimes showing up is really so hard. But truly, like being interested in what someone else is doing, especially an old worker is doing, goes so far. And especially today, like everybody, you talk to anybody who has like a contracting company, any sort of blue collar pursuit, everyone's hurting for workers. And even if it's not stone carving, like just showing up to a small shop and saying, hey, I'm interested and I want to learn. And like, I don't need to be paid right away, but hopefully I'll get good enough that you'll want to pay me. That goes so far. It's also a process of remembering, and that's really has been a huge part of my learning as a stoneworker. And I think even some of the old mentors that I've had, they hadn't forgotten their skills, but they had started to believe that many of their skills weren't so relevant anymore. And so this process of remembering is more of a collaborative thing for me, where I feel like I would have to dig and push these like old stoneworkers to like kind of rediscover these skills that they hadn't used in 20, 30 years. And that combined with exploring old quarries and looking at the marks that somebody left on a piece of stone 100, 150 years ago and being like, oh, that must be from the bull set. And you could tell that their bull set was 4.5 inches wide because like all of their pitch marks are 4 inches. And starting to understand the ways that they like cut stone by hand when they only could cut stone by hand, and their efficiency with their body and efficiency with these really humble tools was the only way that they could make a living. Like people were so motivated to work efficiently when you only had your body and not some fancy saw that would cut quickly. So yeah, thinking about stoneworking today as this like collaborative process of remembering these skills and then taking all that we remember and rediscover, maybe even in like old quarry reports or old reports from some previous stone project or old photographs, like looking at the photographs from the 1800s building St. John the Divine when they were doing the like structural granite work on that building, mind blowing. And there's so many. This process of remembering and then taking what we remember and updating it, hybridizing it with these like new tools that are available, like CNC wire saws, 5-axis robots, 10-axis robots, computer modeling. And for me, the beauty of it is when this 110-year-old compressed air powered hammer works on the same piece as this like 1-year-old CNC robot. And it's the two of them coming together that makes something that's like really, really relevant today. So that kind of brings me to this maybe vision for the future. I just got this like cold call a few days back from the head of one of the local unions in Barrie, Vermont. And this call like hit me really hard because I never thought that it was like on me. I thought I was just like a little piece of the pie, just like another worker in this like big field. And he called and he said, Jim, like I got your number from like so-and-so, like friend of a friend. And they said that you might be able to help us find some granite workers. Like we don't have anybody to carve our stone right now. And I was blown away that the granite capital of the world all of a sudden was ringing, and they're like, how do we find people to keep this going? And with that, I like tapped some people in my network, some like sculpture professors at like local schools, art schools, and said, hey, would any of your students be interested in like maybe doing a summer internship in Barrie, like learning some granite carving? And they were all like, absolutely, yes, I could find you 20 students in like the next day. And for me, it's like truly making these connections. It's just having the people that need the help being connected to the people who want to help. So that's the vision for the future.
Awesome. Great conversation, Jim. I think I'm going to take Matt's part here where he says, we want to have you back. And I'm going to say it because we want to have you back. This is great. I think there's so much more to cover, and what an exciting future. And hopefully we can have a whole podcast say about that down the road.
Sounds
Matt?
good to me. Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to share and be part of this. We're talking the most talented stone carvers alive right now on this podcast. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Stone Carvers Guild Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and we hope that you will find us online at stonecarversguild.org. There you can find photos showing some of the things that we discussed today, additional information about our guest, and if you're so inclined, ways to get more involved with the Guild and our ongoing activities. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, we hope that you will subscribe and rate us on the podcaster of your choice. 5 stars, please. We'll be back in a month with a new episode, so until then, keep your hammer up and your chisel sharp.
The views and opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily reflect that of the Stone Carvers Guild. This content is meant for informational and entertainment purposes only. Thanks for listening.